What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is, as far as I know, this is the USA Made Blade exclusive XM18 3.5-inch skinny Skinner. Check out USA Made Blade if you've never shopped with them. They are an excellent online retailer. I've known Scott Whittington for a few years now, and communicated with him originally on Blade forums, and I've been buying knives from him for a long time. You can check them out at usamadeblade.com. I will make sure and leave a link for this knife specifically to USA Made Blade, and I urge you to look around, especially if you are a fan of number one, US Made knives, and number two, if you like Hinderer knives or ZT knives, or actually there's a whole bunch of knives there that have unique anodizing patterns on them that you cannot get anywhere else. Scott Whittington is a huge part of the knife community, and he's just an excellent human being, so definitely go check them out. Thanks so much, Scott, for sending this guy to me. It's a Hinderer knife, so of course I have to check it out, but here's the thing. This is the first skinny that I have ever handled. Now, many of you know that I recently sold my XM18 3.5-inch. So this is, funny, and it's a little bit frustrating and kind of shameful, but I'm not actually going to be able to compare at this very moment a standard 3.5-inch XM18 and the skinny. I know, blasphemy. We'll take measurements so everybody knows what's going on here. Thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me during these uncertain times. It means the world to me. If you guys would like to check out my Patreon, get your hands on some cool stickers like the ones you just saw and some other exclusive benefits, check out the link in the description. The support would mean the world to me. So, measurements on this guy are the same in terms of overall length and blade length as the standard XM18 3.5-inch, 8.25 inches overall. Blade length is 3.5 inches. This one has a choil, which is standard with XM18s, and your cutting edge is coming in at 3.25. How about we do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1? Rat 1's coming in at 8.6 inches overall. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? PM2 is coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue is coming in at 8.1 inches overall. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. Para 3 is coming in at 7.25 inches overall. How's the action on this guy? Oh my goodness. I mean, Hinderer XM18s that have the new tri-way system are excellent, but yeah, this guy is truly, can we get it? Oh, right at the end there. Almost completely fall shut just by turning the knife. And they have continued, like most of the new ones that I've received have been like that. But what's nice is knowing that this blade actually has a little bit less mass than the 3.5-inch standard thickness, and it's still doing that. It is wonderful. The other nice thing is that these flipper tabs are a little bit more knocked down than the 3.5-inch. So we still have the jimping on the landing zone, but it's not quite as sharp. This feels less sharp, and there's less of it because the scales are also thinner. So a lot of that frustration, and again, the whole like, the flipper tab's pointing and the landing zone's uncomfortable. It is, but it is a slight frustration. People blow that up like it is the worst thing in the world. And yeah, this is coming from a huge Hinderer fan. Guys, I'll admit it. The Hinderer XM18 has a flipper tab that's not optimally designed as a flipper. It is designed first and foremost as a finger guard. You can see there, the perfect rounding of this area is on purpose. It's to make sure that your finger stays locked in, doesn't run up on the blade unless you want to put it in this choked up position. But the end result of that is the fact that it's hook shaped, right? It's not the best designed flipper tab in the world, but if you're concerned with that in the 3.5-inch, there's a good reason to go with the skinny. It is way more comfortable. I could probably do that twice as long in the skinny before my finger starts to get mildly irritated while I'm sitting on the couch and not using the knife. Come on, guys, let's be real about that. Yeah, it could be better, but I just wanted to point that out. Anyways, yeah, action is great, fantastic. Carry profile. This guy has a flipper tab, so if you carry other things in your knife pocket, it might bother you a little bit. In terms of, just carrying the knife, by itself, then it doesn't matter because there's nothing else in your pocket. Overall length is about the same handle-wise as the PM2, but it is not quite as tall. PM2 and Para 3, two knives that have awkward carry profiles that nobody ever complains about, right? So overall length between the XM18 and the Para 3, it's a little bit longer. In terms of overall thickness, this is the skinny, so we're actually looking at comparable, if not identical thickness, considering how far the pivot sticks up, which is not very much, to a Para 3 or PM2. So that's very nice. Blade stock thickness. On a standard XM18 3.5 inch, it is 165 thousandths. On a fatty or XM24, it is 187 thousandths. On the skinny 3.5 inch, it is 140 thousandths, which is roughly the same thickness of blade as a PM2. Because everything is thinner, it also weighs less than a standard XM18. Standard XM18 comes in at about 5.4 ounces. This guy's coming in at 4.76 ounces, which is a considerable amount of weight shaved off of that guy. For, just to compare, here's the Ritter Hogue. 4.55 ounces. So we are in comparable territory overall length and size and all that weight, right, to the Ritter Hogue. Considering you are looking at 3.5 inches of blade, the ratios are decent. They're not perfect, but they're definitely better than a Hinderer XM18. So again, not only is the flipper tab more comfortable, but this guy is a little bit easier to carry in terms of weight. That's enough weight where it is noticeably different in the pocket. So that's welcome, especially to newcomers of Hinderer knives. When Hinderer knives were at, like when they were really like blowing up in everybody's face, that was during a time where massively overbuilt knives were super acceptable and nobody questioned, that kind of stuff. Not nearly as much. Nowadays, people are a little bit more cognizant of what does and doesn't work in their pocket. So this is a welcome addition to the Hinderer line, and it's a sign of Rick Hinderer paying attention to what people are saying, right? You will never find as wide a plethora than with Hinderer knives. Hinderer knives caters to as many different people as you can imagine, even left-handed people, kind of. He needs to make a left-handed version of the XM18, but they do make scales that allow the pocket clip to be at least mounted on the left side. So there's always somebody who has obviously not taken a look at Hinderer knives in a couple of years, commenting in my comment section saying, Hinderers run on nylon, and they don't flip, and they need build. That's long since over. Not only do they flip, and they run on the tri-way system now, which for anybody who doesn't know, I'll mention this again, it comes with all the hardware so that you can switch out the internals to phosphorescence, bearings, or nylon. So you can just have whatever you want. So that's great. The detent is also 100% fixed versus the old ones. It's very snappy. It's very easy to deploy. It's right on par with what you'd expect in today's high-end knife world. It's fantastic. So that's great. Hardware check on this guy. The screws right here, I believe, on the skinnies are, I think, are Torx. And I always mess this up and then I forget. I get it in my head and then I forget. I have the actual armor's tool here, but Hinderer offers Torx sizes on a number of different models, even if they don't come with it. So we're going to go in here real quick. No, these are the actual, those are the actual hex. So in some cases on brand new Hinderer knives, like for example on the half track, they actually do come with Torx. On the Eclipse, it's actually Torx. On the Hinderer XM18 3.5 inch standard version of the sheep's foot, it's Torx because it uses the Eclipse hardware because of the shape of the blade and its interaction between itself and the standoffs, right? So it's confusing. But on top of that, Hinderer offers hardware that you can buy that's actual Hinderer hardware that acts as a replacement for the hex screws if you don't like them. So you can, again, just get the ones that you want. There's always people like, if I can't complain about this, I'm going to complain about something. You can get it. For the most part, Hinderer has a solution for anything that you can complain about other than the price of his knives. That was, by the way, oh no, I can't plug it. Well, I'm going to plug them anyway. These are great tools, but they're not applicable here. But if you have a version of this with Torx, you can pick those up. They're down in the store that I always reference. You can pull it up the store and check out knife maintenance. But anyways, since speaking of my links are always down there, but use the links for USA Made Blade. I really want to push people to USA Made Blade because they're awesome. So check this knife out there. And other Hinderers there. But anyways, where are we at? We're at 9 minutes and we haven't got completely through everything. Have we talked about everything that we do at the beginning? Yeah, I think so. So anyways, I've reviewed the XM18 a million times. Not a million, but I have a gigantic Hinderer playlist where I've looked at like every variant. Not everyone, but a lot of Hinderer stuff, right? This has the same, build. It's a blade shape that has been offered by Hinderer knives for a long time. The difference here is that it's the skinny model, which is marked right here by the S. If it has nothing on there, it's a standard model. If it has an F on here, it's a fatty. So that's how you tell the difference there. And then, of course, the tri-way symbol looks like that. The scales are the same pattern, but they are thinner. You cannot buy a 3.5-inch standard thickness scale and put it on a skinny. You can buy a scale for a standard thickness XM18 and put it on a fatty, because there's no difference in thickness there. So just so everybody knows that. They also have their own handle screws, so keep that in mind. The standoffs are also their own size because the spacing between this liner and the titanium lock side is different because of the thickness of the blade, and is also the case with the Chicago screws. So keep that in mind. The titanium, like I said, is a little bit thinner, and the blade stock is thinner. Other than that, the thumb studs are in the same position, and they feel about the same to engage and disengage. You can do a reverse flick on these guys. It feels like possibly the detent is slightly lighter. I don't know why. It's fine because the XM18, the standard one, has a ridiculously heavy detent, and so there's no issue with that whatsoever. This is a tumbled blade. The working finish blade will be nowhere near as reflective. They offer just as many different finishes in the skinnies as they do, the regular models. There are more XM18 3.5-inch models in the standard thickness out there than any other Hinderer knife. So if you go on retailers looking for custom hardware and you're like, there's not as much, it's because this model is newer. This style of model is newer. There isn't as much stuff out there, but it will continue, to restock and eventually be in more plentiful supply, I'm sure. Listen, the rest of this knife is much the same as a Hinderer. So, let me tell you right now at 11 minutes and 33 seconds, I'm going to recommend this knife. It's a great knife for a great price. The biggest benefit of the skinny is the fact that the blade stock allows the final edge to be much thinner. Now, this still isn't what I'd call a laser beam, but it is definitely more performance-oriented than the standard thickness of any of these blade shapes. If you don't like the Skinner blade, the most performance-oriented blade shape on the 3.5-inch is undoubtedly the slicer. So now you can get a slicer at about 140 to, I think the official measurement, I think I read it was actually 145 thousandths. In any case, you can get a slicer in those dimensions, which is great. They also make, or have made, the sheep's foot. They've made the, what am I missing here? Oh, they made a harpoon spanto. Yeah, I think that was the first skinny. Those are long gone. Yeah, and I imagine they'll continue to make skinny versions of all or most of the blade shapes. So that's great. I mean, that's the real deal here, guys, is that you're getting all the Hinderer goodness, but you're just getting a blade that is more performance-oriented. The shape of your choice is more performance-oriented, and it's a little bit lighter. Now, the true end result, or the main meat and potatoes of what I'm going to say here, is that I think that this version of the knife is actually better all the way around than the standard thickness in terms of how I would recommend it to a newcomer to knives. Because if you get on blade forums, or you get on YouTube, or you get on Instagram, and you gather up everybody's thoughts, right? Everybody has different thoughts of what's good and bad, but for the most part, the general consensus is if it's easier to carry, if it's more compact and a little bit thinner or lighter, right? There's a lot of variables to that, but that's good, right? A bigger, thicker version of the same knife is not as good. A thicker blade geometry is not as good as a thinner blade geometry, considering what most of us use our knives for, which is just cut normal stuff, right? So it's going to be better, right? And so that's the case here, is that you get everything that I normally love about Hinderer knives. It's just a little bit easier to carry and use, right? Even the flipper tab is knocked down a little bit. So I will always personally love the full thickness version, and truthfully, I actually personally like the thickness of the fatty more, but that's just me liking. I like the unmilled titanium scales. The new titanium scales that they offer are milled out. I actually like the excess weight. But I don't think like the typical, and I'm not trying to I'm so different and unique because I think this way. No, there's a part of my brain that I can't help that likes the solidity and the extra heft, right? It's actually, it puts me at a disadvantage, a slight disadvantage. But that's just the way I think. So I always enjoy the full thickness or the fatty thickness a little bit more personally. But in terms of, if somebody came up and said, hey, I'm looking at Hinderer knives, what should I start with? Between this and the Jurassic, it's hard to say, but somebody who loves the look of the XM18, but they're wondering, should I start with the skinny or the standard thickness? Honestly, I'm going to recommend the skinny to most people. The skinny, the thing that I really thought was going to happen is that I was going to hold it and it was going to feel so much thinner and more frail than the standard version of the XM18 that I was so used to. Because I've owned 17 or 18 XM18s and 25 or 26 Hinderers overall. I thought that it was just going to feel too small and too frail. No, absolutely not. It's just as easy to engage and disengage. The lockup is still sitting at exactly where it's supposed to be, about 35%. The blade still comes perfectly centered. You're going to get that 99.9% of the time with a Hinderer knife. The lockup is absolutely solid, up, down, left to right. You still get all the solidity. You still get like a robust feeling knife, but it's not as robust, in what most people would consider to be an unnecessary fashion. So not only is this knife recommendable, I honestly think it's the most recommendable Hinderer alongside the Jurassic, which I also gave a very, very positive review to it, and in contrast with the standard thickness XM18, because that's usually the knife that draws people in. Between this and the Jurassic, these are the two best Hinderer knives to start with if you're looking for a full-size knife, definitely. So go to USA Made Blade and check these out because he's got both of those available. This is a wonderful knife. It will be going on my most recommended knives playlist 100%. Thanks again, Scott Whittington, for sending this guy along. This was great. I'm glad I got to experience a skinny and that there's something out there in my Hinderer playlist for people looking for information on the skinny. So anyways, guys, that's going to be pretty much it. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.